Gollum, that's an amazing character, which haunted my children for years to come. Are you kidding me? There's only one creature capable of leaving a footprint that size, the abominable snowman. That was one of the characters that I played in Peter Jackson's 2005 King Kong, and Lumpy the chef.
The abominable snowman.
You know, I'd been studying gorillas for months and months and months, going to Rwanda, and then I get to New Zealand to play Kong, and Pete says, yeah, and I think I'd quite like you to play another character as well. Do you want to play Lumpy the chef? This very bawdy, saucy chef. What I invented for him was that he was constantly smoking and had a cigarette in his mouth all the time, to the point that from the smoke going into one eye, one eye was constantly shut. As we've done on Lord of the Rings, the behind the scenes has been hugely important. And I mean, it was such a groundbreaking thing, sharing with an audience the process of making a film as it was happening. And it began on Lord of the Rings, of course, and those behind the scenes have become the things of legend, really. And so many filmmakers I know started making films because they'd watched the behind the scenes of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. When we were doing Kong, it sort of became more official, really. There were these blogs that went out every 2 weeks, or little mini videos. And I remember making one as Lumpy the chef. He was one of those guys who gives it out, and then meets a very, very grisly death, in fact, which haunted my children for years to come. And in fact, yeah, Sonny, my oldest boy, I remember him being 5 and seeing that film, and I thought, I shouldn't have shown him that, because this sort of rather phallic monster kind of comes down and takes Lumpy in its claws and sort of sucks him in. Yeah, it's a tragic end to Lumpy, which I know pretty much scarred Sonny for life. Give it to us raw and wriggling. I mean, who couldn't say it was Gollum from Lord of the Rings?
Is it Gollum or is it Smeagol?
Actually, that's a very good point. Give it to us raw and wriggling. Yeah, no, it's Smeagol, actually. It's absolutely Smeagol from the Two Towers.
Give it to us raw and wriggling.
The first conversation I had about going to work on Lord of the Rings was from my agent. Was like, Andy, they're doing this film with Lord of the Rings in New Zealand. There's a potential digital character with it's about 3 weeks voiceover work. And I said, Lord of the Rings, there must be a dozen good parts in that. You know, can you not get me up for a decent role? You know, that was literally my response. And then it was just like, no, it's Gollum. And I was like, oh, Gollum, that's an amazing character. When I met with Peter Jackson, I realised what they wanted to do, which was to have an actor play the role. But he said to me quite clearly, you know, you will not be manifested as yourself on screen. It's going to be a digital character, but we want an actor to play the role, because we can't have Elijah Wood and Sean Astin acting against a tennis ball and a stick, because Gollum drives a lot of the scenes. But it was unclear at that point as to what my involvement would be. I couldn't just do a voice on set. I was like crawling about being the character, and Peter said, no, okay, so we're going to change our idea of how we're going to do this. Film Andy on set, and then he can go back, and when it's Gollum-only shots, we'll use performance capture, or motion capture as it was at the time. And that was the early days, and it was literally the sound. Someone held up a telephone of the scene that we had done, that I was then doing the capture for, of Elijah and Sean's lines, and then I was acting in this tiny little volume with no facial capture, but just the physical capture at that point. Okay, here we go. On program, that is from Andor.
On program!
To be honest, when I was offered the role, I was slightly worried, because I'd been in the Star Wars universe as Supreme Leader Snoke, and then I was thinking, that was confusing enough for the fans. I just thought they might think there was some weird connection between this new character that I was playing. When I met with Tony Gilroy, I just loved where he was coming from with this script and this story, and to talk about fascism through the lens of Star Wars, I thought was incredible. Patience, my love. That's Lord of the Rings too. That is Smeagol. Oh, or maybe it's Gollum, actually. I think it's in Return of the King, and it's a scene, and it's reflecting in the pond. Yes, and he's saying, you know, let's bide our time, and then we'll kill Master Frodo, and then we'll take the ring.
Patience, my love.
I can't really talk about the hunt for Gollum right now, but I mean, that character's never gone away. He's sort of always been lurking. And, you know, so it's interesting that we worked on 25 years ago on Lord of the Rings, and then going back and revisiting him in The Hobbit. And then I did the audio books, and then coming back 25 years later to revisit Gollum again. And there's still more to investigate in the character, and that's the wonderful thing about it. And actually, what's been interesting is how he's been absorbed into public consciousness, really. And I think the whole notion of addiction of the character and that being addicted to the ring is something that certainly when I've met, say, fans at conventions and they say, you know, I actually really relate to Gollum, the inner voices, and addiction as well, particularly people who have been through hard times, they've sort of connected with that character. So I'm really looking forward to re-examining him in the up and coming times. Thank you. You're just a child in a mask. Star Wars, and this is a Supreme Leader Snoke line, as we were just talking about.
You're just a child in a mask.
That is literally one of the hardest roles I've ever played, Snoke, I think, because the definition of the character was very fluid and it was mysterious, but it also stemmed from the fact that I wasn't entirely rooted in the character. I couldn't quite find myself find the centre of it. I did actually in the second film a little more, but just also the way we shot it. I was in the first film, Force Awakens. I was like 50 feet away from the other actors and 30 feet up. Yeah, it was not easy to connect with your scene partner. When you read the script for these things, you go in and your phone's taken off you and you sit down and there's video cameras everywhere and you sit and you read the script. And Rian Johnson had said this was going to be a much better role, you know, in the second film. So I was reading it and I was like, oh yeah, this is getting really good, and it was getting really juicy. And then suddenly, you know, and then Snoke gets cut in half, and I was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, I give up. No! That was Caesar's first word in Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
No!
I'd never thought I'd be playing another ape after playing Kong, because that was a big journey for that character. And then I read the script for Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and it was like, this story is extraordinary, and I just kind of forgot what he was. And then until this moment in the script where suddenly Caesar speaks for the first time, I thought, this is an ape speaking for the first time. You know, it was really, really powerful. And when the day was coming up to shoot this scene, I spent a long time sort of coiling the spring as such, and then kind of letting rip on it. And I remember Tom Felton's face. It was truly magnificent to see. Thanks. I'll keep the light on for you. I hope you find peace. Hold on to each other. Oh my gosh. I'll keep the light on for you. I hope you find peace. Oh, you got me there. I'll keep the light on for you. Nah, you got me. I have no idea about this one. I'll keep the light on for you. I hope you find peace. Ah!
Hold on to each other.
They sent me the pitch deck, and I looked at it, and I just thought, this is so interesting. What a video game. And I'm so thrilled for these guys, because I loved the idea of it, but I loved the visuals of it. I just thought it was beautiful. And I'm so thrilled for their success. These guys had never made a video game before. It was their first one, and they learnt on YouTube tutorials. It's such an emotional story for a video game, and it just looks extraordinary, and the music in it is so powerful. I don't see any difference between that and acting in films or on stage or TV. You know, it's exactly the same. You approach the character and build a character in the same way. And my first engagement with video games was with a company called Ninja Theory, and we made a game called Heavenly Sword for PlayStation 3. At that point, actors looked down on video games as like, I wouldn't get involved in a video game. You know, now young actors coming out of drama schools and they're like, I really want to be in a video game. The irony is that Hollywood is using video game engines to drive all of the previs for all of the big action sequences in all of the movies. But also for cinematographers to use previs and to be able to place light sources or moonlight or sunlight or, you know, very specifically where, you know, in a shot. It's an essential tool of modern filmmaking. And there has always been that snobbery about video games not being anywhere near filmmaking, but that's all changing. And certainly certainly looking into the future when we have more immersive storytelling, which is what's happening. Thank you. I could teach you how to fight, but I wasn't equipped to take care of you. You needed a father. All you had was me, Alfred, in The Batman. I wasn't equipped to take care of you. You needed a father. And all you had was me. That was me being reunited with Matt Reeves after playing Caesar twice with him directing, and him saying to me, I want to do a film where I just see Andy. I just want to see Andy. You know, I really love Alfred as a character, and he has no true paternal instinct, and that's his tragedy. I know hugely important in my journey as an actor and a human being, the role of the father and what that means as both as one myself, but also the relationship that I had with my father. That was an important role in a way to sort of succinctly brought those things together. Trust me, laddie, I know these parts like the back of my hand. This is Captain Haddock. Trust me, laddie. I know these parts like the back of my hand. One of my greatest moments, pinch me moments as an actor in this profession, the lead up to this, because Stephen had never used performance capture before. Peter, had been through the whole process, and James Cameron was getting ready to shoot Avatar, and there was this one day at Marina del Rey. The three of them were there, and I was in my motion capture suit, and Stephen was getting used to using a virtual camera. And Pete was showing him, and James, was there. And it was just three of the greatest directors on the planet. And just think of the insurance in the room, and me, and then Zoe Saldana came and joined, and it was just like, I actually can't quite believe that I'm standing here. And we did a little scene, and they were all having a camera off to see who would come up with the best shots. No, it was incredible. It was incredible. Thank you. You are responsible for whatever happens to this animal, Doctor. Is this from The Prestige? Yes.
You are responsible for whatever happens to this animal, Doctor.
I actually really love watching that film. There are very few films that are kind of comfortable watching that I'm in. I think it's one of my favourite films, actually. Plus, I got to work with David Bowie, of course. He was such a lovely scene partner and brilliant and hilarious and very funny and very self-deprecating. And he took the mick out of himself mercilessly about his own Serbian accent. And he said, I just think I sound like Clouseau, and we had great fun. Oh, God, who is this? I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me. Please let me fix it so I can break it again. I know the rhythm of it, but which is the character? It must be Captain Haddock again, surely. No. That's Tom Hardy. Is that Tom Hardy? Yeah, it's a Venom. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. Please, let me fix it. I'm ready to... So I can break it again.
I had an absolute ball directing Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I thought what Tom had done with the first one was just remarkable. There's some similarities in the way that Tom and I approached characters and the respect that we have for the craft of acting and the fun also element of that we have with acting. And he's very bold, he makes bold choices, and playing a character that has a symbiote living inside of him and a dual personality, and knowing my history with Gollum and so on, that was an important link for us both. He originally was toying with the idea of using performance capture, but he didn't want to go down that route actually. He wanted to only hear the voice, so he used to record his dialogue before we'd do a scene, have it in his ear, Venom's voice, because he wanted to be able to place Venom in his head wherever he wanted, and so I fully understood that. So that's how we went about it, and that's how I shot it. So if you're going to fiddle with my brain, this should be read with a South African accent, and make me see a giant cuttlefish, then I know you don't do business, and I know you're not in charge, and I only deal with the man in charge. This was Age of Ultron, Avengers, Age of Ultron.
I only deal with the man in charge.
My first foray into the wiki-wacky world of Ulysses Claw, And yeah, I mean, a character I loved playing, and yet another character who had a bit of an early departure in my mind. Thought he could have kept going for a bit longer. It was such good fun to do. And then going on to work with Ryan Coogler on Black Panther and working with the brilliant Chadwick Boseman was a real highlight. And I loved developing this character. He was so maniacal, crazy, you know, despicable but funny. And it's really, really weird. You know, I started out as a theatre actor. I never thought I would end up in the world of these big franchises. Not for a second. I thought I was going to be making arty, independent films. Never considered that, you know, that I would be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or Lord of the Rings, or Star Wars. You know, it's just like incredible. You know, I do pinch myself and kind of go, how did this happen? Alrighty, everybody, let's farm. Okay, so now we come to the current film, which is Animal Farm.
Let's farm!
A long time in the making. We set out to make it as a motion capture movie and then decided that if we'd made a live action version, it would have been much darker. And I'm really glad that we decided to make it as an animation, and ultimately to make it for young inquiring minds who could sit with their parents and grandparents and have a very seminal political piece of work brought to them so that they could think about the future that they're going to inherit, the earth that they're going to inherit, and somehow feel that they can have a discussion about it. But it has been 15 years in the making. And there are some people that we approached 12 years ago when we sort of knew what we were doing with the script. And that was Glenn Close and Jim Parsons and Seth Rogen, all of whom stuck with the project because they were passionate about the book. Randolph the Rooster is sort of the commentary as the utopia falls apart. I wasn't actually going to play anything in this. And everybody went, well, Andy, why don't you play Randolph? And I was like, oh yeah, go on then, I'll have a go. And but I actually really loved playing him.